Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, it's back to school again as Israel's coronavirus cabinet reopens classrooms across most of the country. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu playing it coy when grilled about his alleged recent trip to Saudi Arabia, as his recent peace agreement with the UAE earns him a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. And finally, whatever you do, stay out of the water. Stay tuned for the government non-COVID related reason to keep away from Israel's Mediterranean coastline. Our top news tonight, dozens of people rescued Tuesday morning as Israeli firefighters pushed back against a massive blaze in the Jerusalem residential complex. The black smoke and flames spreading out from the parking lot below and engulfing the structure in the neighborhood of Romema. Hebrew media reporting that several residents jumped from the building and lightly injured themselves. Additionally, a number of people are reportedly suffering from mild smoke inhalation. But the situation could have been much worse, according to Jerusalem fire and rescue officials. The building is home to dozens of families, many with small children, and the fire itself could have been prevented or at least greatly reduced in severity had a number of basic protocols been followed in the old and densely populated building. On to coronavirus, the pandemic always in the back of our minds, and now again in the front, as Israel's COVID cabinet ignores more conservative voices in favor of further easing out of lockdown. Nittany Manson reports.
8 hours of debates in Israel's coronavirus cabinet ending Tuesday morning with Education Minister Yoav Gallant announcing plans to reopen the country's schools in green and yellow cities, starting with high schoolers who are returning to class on Sunday and followed by middle schoolers the next week, on Sunday, December 6th. Red city schools, on the other hand, will remain closed.
אנחנו מאוד מקווים שזה יצליח. אנחנו בנושא הזה צריכים הסכמה רחבה. ההסכמה תעזור לנו לנהל מערכת חינוך גם בצל הקורונה. לזה אנחנו חייבים הסכמה לבדיקות של הילדים, אולי לא בכל מקום, אבל עד כמה שאפשר, ובוודאי של הצוות החינוכי.
Still, many other health officials have been objecting to a swift return to school, which is largely blamed as the cause of infections following the first lockdown earlier this year. And anyways, classrooms in grades 1 through 6 have already been opened, despite the virus's infection rate remaining above 2% nationwide and rising. This bringing the active cases overnight to a total of over 8,900, and the death toll climbing to 2,818. Well, with that in mind then, health officials claiming that education will be the sole focus for reopening over the next month, pending changes in morbidity data.
זאת ההחלטה שהתקבלה אתמול בקבינט, לפחות בחודש הקרוב אנחנו נהיה עסוקים בפתיחת מערכת החינוך ולא בדברים נוספים. כך החליט הקבינט, כך אני מקווה לפחות שאכן יהיה בשטח.
And finally, ending on an up note, it seems that Israel's scheduled receipt of Pfizer's new COVID-19 vaccine has been moved forwards. The Jewish state now expecting to receive up to 500,000 doses of the vaccine as soon as December.
Now, we've discussed the consequences of coronavirus on Israel's immigrant and lone soldier populations in the past, but now a new threat has emerged. Lone soldiers honorably discharged are now losing their housing aid benefits due to the lack of budget. Joining me with more is Knesset member from the Israel Beitenu party and the head of the Lone Soldiers Committee, Alex Kushnir, and recently discharged lone soldier and current university student, Marta Ginsburg. Thank you both so much for being with us today.
Hi, hello.
All right. Now, Marta, I actually want to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your situation?
Yes, I can. I finished my army in August this year. Then I went to the university, but I needed to wait for it to start. So I wanted to fly to Russia because I missed my family. And then they told me that I should get back because if I will not be in Israel, they will not pay me for studies. But I said I haven't got money to live here, and they said that they will pay us some money, 12,000 shekels in a year for pay for dorms, or something. So I get back here, and then they just told us that they will not pay. So now I need to pay by myself, and I don't really have this money to pay for myself for all of this year.
My gosh. All right. Well, so Knesset member Kushner, how did we get to this situation where Marta is being told that she can't leave the country and that she will be supported, and now she's left in the wind?
Well, first of all, it's just, unacceptable situation, because there is a law in this country that says that every discharged lone soldier will receive rent assistance for 1 year, 1,000 shekels per year. And then surprisingly, like 2 days ago, we were notified by the Ministry of Defense that they don't have this money, which cannot be true, because they just, they just don't follow the law. That's why, of course, we approached the Minister of Defense and the minister in the Ministry of Defense, and asked them to solve this problem. Till now, we didn't get a positive answer, but tomorrow we are committing the meeting in our committee in order to ask them or to have the questions. And I hope that tomorrow we will find a budget. It just cannot be a situation when the lonely soldiers who come here from abroad, or they just live here and they have a very difficult economic situation, they build on this money. They know that this money is granted them by the law, and surprisingly, the government decides not to pay. So of course we are fighting the situation, and I hope that this week we will solve the problem.
So Marta, back to you. In the meantime, how do you plan to sustain yourself?
I don't really know, because I really just studied my university, so all my power I give for studies, and it's really hard because I need to think all day, not of my homework and my work. I need to think about how I will get money. Also, I have a little sister in this country, so I need sometimes to meet her, to go to her boarding school, and I don't really have enough money to write to her, to meet her or something.
Are there any sort of grants or any sort of aid program, maybe through the university or some sort of forgiveness, program? Is there anything that you could apply for?
They already help us with paying for studies. Wow. And it's good that they're helping us with money for studies, but we also need to live somewhere, because I'm tired of moving on like every year, because since I came to Israel, I have moved on like 6 times since I was in school, and I'm really tired of it, because every place just don't feel like home.
See, all right. Now, Knesset member, I want to come back to you. Why do you believe that this was, the first budget to be cut in recent months? Why do you think that this was the first thing to be targeted?
I think it's just, an absence of simple management, because we saw yesterday that the Ministry of Finance approved additional budget of 37 million shekels for Orthodox institution, and by that time there are 5 million missing for lonely soldiers. We understand that this is a problem of priorities. I think that the time came when in this country, people who serve this country will receive the first priority. And for that, we are fighting in the Knesset, in the committees. And I think that Marta will receive, I hope that she will receive good news during this week about the rent assistance, and not only the rent assistance. Marta told that she was required to come back because the Ministry of Area Integration refused to pay her scholarship. And yesterday on the Committee of Area and Integration, we found a solution. And now they prolonged the period so the Olim can come back until December 13th. And even though they who will be late, they could come to the committee and the problem, the approach or the application will be approved anyways.
And, just a quick follow-up on that. Do you believe that this has anything to do with the national budget?
Well, you need to understand that the budget of Ministry of Defense is around 50 billion shekels. So 5 million shekels is nothing. I'm just saying, careless, I'm sorry. and an absence of simple management. This is the problem. The problem is that these guys who come here from abroad and serve this country, they are not on the top priority of this government. And that should be changed. That's why we are fighting, and that's why we're doing everything we can to put them on the first priority in this country and in this government. That's what we're doing.
So, Marta, final comments back to you. Listening to the Knesset member's words, what's going through your mind right now, and what do you want maybe the government or the Ministry of Defense to know about what you're going through?
I left my country. I left Russia to coming for Israel, and while my friends that I studied with them in school in Russia, they finished their university. Now they got families, they got work, they have making their money. While I did my army, I gave 2 years to this country because I love it, and I knew that Israel will support me and help me with the money when I will finish my army. And now I just feel like I don't have anything here. And I just hope that if I left my mother and my father in Russia, I will have in Israel, like they are my parents and they just left us alone.
All right, well, I certainly hope that we find a good solution for you and for all the other soldiers who are in your situation. Marta, Knesset member, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now on a similar note, budgeting crises aside, the pandemic is threatening to financially ruin millions of Israeli lives in another way. The Treasury now proposing a freeze on the national average wage. And here to explain is ILTV consumer behavior expert, Dr. Vili Abraham. Dr. Abraham, thank you so much. Now, what are we discussing when we're talking about the national average wage, and who does it apply to?
Well, when we're looking at the national average income, it actually takes into consideration all the people who are currently employed and divides it by the number of people who are employed. And what has happened is, if you look at the average income before the coronavirus pandemic, it was around 10,550 shekels. And now it's 1,000 shekels higher, because what happened was that when a lot of people lost their jobs, most people who have lost their jobs are the low-income earners. And what this has done is that has increased artificially the average income.
Well, so, I mean, if we're just talking about, a simple math problem, why is it important to freeze this wage?
Well, the concern is, first of all, we have to look a little bit at the history and the background. So there are a lot of things that are indexed to the average income. For example, the salaries of ministers and members of parliament, public sector workers. So the finance ministry was concerned that because the average income has increased so much, it will have to increase.
Well, and
the
it's been
salary
inflated, really. You're saying?
Yeah, it'll be inflated, and it'll be left with another 7 to 9 billion shekel deficit.
Wow. All right. So, who will be most affected, and who's responsible for getting this freeze done?
Well, it has to be approved by the parliament. Now it's just a bill. It's a proposed bill. And I think that if it doesn't happen, this may affect negatively the people who do go back to work, and some of the people who are remaining unemployed. It's not good for both sides.
I see. All right. Now, meanwhile, the Bank of Israel is reportedly sitting idle as the shekel gets stronger and stronger, and we've discussed about how this may be great for Israelis traveling abroad and want more bang for their buck, but it's bad for exports. What can you tell us about this?
So when the shekel gets stronger, it's bad for exporters, because it means that people who buy things from Israel have to pay more per item. So it decreases demand. But for importers, it's great because it means that they can buy things for a lot cheaper, and it's better for Israelis who order things online.
So why should the Bank of Israel be doing anything, or should they be doing anything?
Well, they're concerned for importers, because importers will have to pay more to import stuff and buy stuff, so they might be losing a lot of money. That's what they're concerned over.
I see. All right. Well, we're going to have to hope for the best when it comes to all of this. I mean, this coronavirus is really just throwing everything into mayhem. Dr. Abraham, thank you so much for being with us.
It was a pleasure.
Moving on, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and United Arab Emirates Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed have now just been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Peace Prize recipient Lord William David Trimley. And this over the recent signing of the Abraham Peace Accords between the UAE and Israel. But while honored for one peace agreement, the premier is now playing coy when it comes to chasing another. Netanyahu brushing off questions regarding his alleged trip to Saudi Arabia earlier this week. Neither confirming nor denying reports, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expertly dodging questioning over his not-so-secret trip to the Saudi city of Neom Sunday night.
ידידיי, אני מעולם לא התייחסתי לדברים הללו לאורך שנותיי, ואני לא מתכוון להתחיל לעשות זאת עכשיו. ואני רק יכול להגיד לכם שאני באמת לאורך שנותיי כראש ממשלה, אני לא חסכתי שום מאמץ כדי לחזק את מדינת ישראל וכדי להרחיב את מעגל השלום. ובעזרת השם אנחנו מצליחים לעשות זאת עם שכנותינו, עם האמירויות, עם בחריין, עם סודאן, ואני מקווה גם שהמעגל הזה תמיד ילך ויתרחב.
Speculations abound, however, that Netanyahu is only keeping mum because his trip was unsuccessful. Hebrew media reporting that Netanyahu traveled with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo primarily to try and get Saudi Arabia to normalize with Israel. Saudi officials, however, rejecting the idea on the basis of stalled Palestinian peace talks again, as they have been for a very long time. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud even said so, in fact, just a couple of days prior.
Our position has not changed. It's quite clear. We have supported normalization with Israel for a long time because we are the authors of the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, which envisioned complete normalization with Israel. But there's one very important thing that has to happen first, which is a permanent and full peace deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis that delivers a Palestinian state with dignity within the 1967 borders and to the Palestinians.
At any rate, while playing coy on his trip to Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu has since announced the scheduling of a landmark public trip to the Gulf Kingdom of Bahrain, and of course at their invitation. Bahrain being the second Arab state after the UAE and before Sudan to normalize with Israel in just the past few months.
שוחחתי עכשיו עם יורש העצר של בחריין, הנסיך סלמן בן חמד. השיחה השנייה שלנו מאוד ידידותית. שנינו מאוד נרגשים מהעובדה שאנחנו יכולים להביא את פירות השלום לעמים שלנו, למדינות שלנו, בזמן קצר מאוד. ולכן הוא גם הזמין אותי בזמן הקרוב לבוא לביקור רשמי בבחריין, ואני אעשה זאת בשליחותכם בחפץ לב.
Meanwhile, speaking of the new peace agreements, Israeli national airline El Al is now set to offer 14 weekly direct flights en route to Dubai as soon as December 13. And our next guest comes to us now just after returning from a recent trip to Dubai. Please welcome Israeli journalist, author, and attorney Ben-Dor Yamini. Thank you so much for being with us again. Now, I said I'd have you back yesterday, actually, to talk about this. I'm really excited. What brought you to Dubai? What were you there for?
It was quite interesting because it was actually a delegation of a group, reservists on duty, but out of the 8 people, 6 were Arabs, Israeli Arabs. And they asked me to join them, which I did, of course. I mean, something that you cannot really refuse. And it was quite amazing. I mean, you just don't believe the empathy, the atmosphere in Dubai. For example, just an example. I mean, I'm not speaking even about the meetings. I'm speaking about daily life. If you go to the main food market of Dubai, you will see, and maybe we can see the picture, I don't know, you will see the flag of Israel made of vegetables. Why? I mean, how come? well, here we see it. Why? Because actually most of the vegetables right now, after not many weeks of peace, are coming from Israel, actually.
That was fast.
I mean, quite fast. I mean, you just don't believe it. So many flags of Israel, and it's one of the only places beside Israel that you can walk with the flag of Israel, and nobody will tell you anything. Maybe some people even bless you. I mean, they were so nice to us. But I'm not speaking only about the people that we met. I'm speaking generally in the street. When you are saying that you are from Israel, people are blessing you.
Is that maybe what you were most surprised by? Or if not, what were you most surprised by when you get there?
Look, nowadays an Egyptian singer just took a photo with an Israeli singer. And he is now under a boycott in Egypt. I mean, what a sad story. We have a peace agreement with Egypt. And a singer cannot even take a photo with an Israeli. And when we asked our partners from Dubai, I mean, can we publish the picture with you? They told us, what, are you crazy? I mean, we are going to publish the pictures.
Wow.
It's not only, of course, I mean, that's what they do. Some of them put their names in Hebrew in the Twitter account, for example. I mean,
so cool.
Not one, not two, but many. Besides that, somebody told us a very nice sentence. He told us, look, you have peace agreements with Jordan and with Egypt. With us, you have normalization. It's the daily life. Daily life. Yes, we want you here. We want to come to visit you. Amazing.
It's beautiful. All right, so I'm curious now, because obviously this peace goes two ways, and soon, if not already, we're going to have, hopefully, droves of Emirati citizens coming to visit here in Israel. What do you think that they're going to think?
I don't know. I mean, I think they are quite prepared because they know much about Israel. I mean, some of them even are learning Hebrew. And with one of the women, she's dressed with, this kind of abaya, all covered from one hand, but from the other hand, she's so pro-peace, and she can chat in Hebrew. When you hear them and when you listen to what they have to say, I mean, how comes that after so many years of anti-Israeli education, they are becoming so pro-Israelis? I don't know. It's something that I must admit. I have to learn much more about what happened and how this process took place. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm really excited to learn more about it. And when you find out, be sure to let us know. Ben Dorimini, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now returning from abroad back to Israel, I just have one warning for would-be vacationers hanging around our beaches. Stay out of the sea at all costs, at least for now. And unfortunately, this public service announcement comes not from me, but from the Ministry of Health and from the Ministry of Environmental Protection. Why? Because the water is full of waste. The government warning the public that sewage, runoff, and other polluted drainage is making its way into the sea untreated and at an alarming rate. And this due to the recent heavy rainfall and flooding, as well as a defective pipe near Nahal Poleg. Moving on now to our final story for the evening, the IDF opening up investigations into an incident from Sunday evening where a Merkava tank overturned, injuring the driver inside. The initial reports showing that the 24-year-old driver neither slowed down nor drove at the right angle as he attempted to load the armored vehicle onto a carrier. The tank instead nearly crushing several soldiers nearby. Fuel fumes seen billowing from the tank as video of the incident, however, seems to corroborate the driver's story that the tank's gas pedal got stuck while boarding the carrier. Thankfully, though, again, no serious injuries have been reported. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be cloudy again and cool with lows around 56 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect clouds and showers with another drop in temperatures for an average high of about 71 Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius. And now let's see what's going viral in Israel. It's really, wow. Loving the dog video once again. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.34 shekels to the American dollar and 2.56 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.